winner this year is Mr. Anson Ng.
We produce 300 million tons of plastic every year, and 90% is actually missed, it's not recovered. It ends in oceans or ends in landfills. Plastic per se is not bad. I mean, plastic was invented in the 1930s, and since then, actually, most of our development in the last century cannot be understood without the benefits that plastic brought into society. The problem is actually also how society has become added to this material and the amount that we are producing and this lack of integration into the natural systems. We are not trying to remove plastic, we are not trying to go back 100 years on technology. What we are trying is completely the opposite. What we are trying to do is to bring materials that they outperform plastic in many senses. They open like new possibilities and they enable to make engineering in a society that moves around biology, and by definition that society will be sustainable. So take for example the case of FLAM, right? The material that we made in collaboration with Stilianos. So this material is not only strong, but again, since we never modify the composition, like respect the natural molecules, it's actually perfectly integrated in the ecology of Earth. So FLAM is made out of cellulose and chitin. They are like the most abundant and second most abundant organic polymers on Earth. Cellulose is well known for everybody, is everywhere in green plants, right? Chitin is less known because of the lack of industrial uses. Chitin, for example, is the cells of the insects. The protective exoskeleton of the insect is made mostly of chitins. Same thing for molluscus and the sea cells. Actually, they are also made of chitin. So it's a molecule that nature is using in very different areas to make strong protective materials. So in the Fermat lab, the lab that I lead in SUTD, we focus on the integration of biology in other engineering fields. We are setting the ground to what we call the biomaterial age, where biology will link and integrate with other engineering fields to bring them to the next level. In the case of plastic, what we are determined is to actually break this cycle of production and consumption of plastic in a non-sustainable way. And what we're trying to do is to set a new paradigm that is based on biological materials, where your materials are produced, manufactured into products and degrade in closed regional areas. And actually they have like this kind of circular economy society embedded into the material itself.
You often hear about big data in business and finance. At SUTD, we are using big data to design better future cities. Big data is vast amount of information collected in real time to reveal their patterns and trends, allowing for better decisions to be made. The cool thing about big data is that it allows us to understand how a city behaves. We'll know how to design it better, even how to preserve a rapidly growing city's culture. MND HDB's 6 million New Urban Kampong Research Program with SUTD is a great example. The interdisciplinary research program stretches across architecture, engineering, and social sciences, aiming to enhance the kampong spirit in our public housing. People and spaces don't work alone. On its own, a void deck is just an empty space. By locating coffee shop or playground next to it, including a sitting area with ambient lighting, or running community activities, a void deck will become a social deck, and life will start to take place. We are collecting and using data from various sources, from surveys and interviews with residents to social media, mobile apps, and sensors installed at HDB common areas. For instance, through smart furniture we designed for a void deck, the data collected from the sensors let us understand behavioral patterns and design better community space to meet residents' evolving needs. Preserving culture with data-driven urban planning goes beyond Singapore. We offer global exposure for all our students right from year one. In a joint design studio, SUTD and other university students flew over to Finland and Singapore to study the public spaces in both cities, relooking what a dense city could be. Hawker culture is a key part of Singaporean identity, included in UNESCO list of intangible cultural heritage. Students reimagine the future of hawker centers with exciting possibilities, such as community farms that hawkers can use and integrating sinks with rainwater collection points for washing. Social media is a powerful tool to uncover the behavior, even emotions of people. Analyzing millions of geolocated tweets from Singapore, Kyoto, and Venice, our students observe patterns in people's movements and the type of emojis they use to design better urban spaces that bring us joy. Clever use of big data and design, and doing so with the heart, empowers you to design better future cities we can call home. You can impact lives and make a difference.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Singapore University of Technology and Design. Good afternoon, Ambassador Adima, the Ambassador to the Kingdom of the Netherlands, Professor Chong Tao Chong, President of SUTD, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests, and dear friends. A very warm welcome to the third edition of the SUTD Design Innovation Forum. I'm Corina Chung, Senior Director of Marketing and Communications at SUTD, and I'm delighted to be your MC today. We are thrilled to have more than 1,000 attendees, both physically as well as virtually with us. And I would like to extend a very warm welcome to everyone. So as we come together today to discuss the theme of a design for a sustainable world, it is essential that we also recognize the urgent need to take action towards creating a more sustainable future. At SUTD, we believe that sustainability is only possible if we adopt sustainable behaviors and habits in our everyday lives. The world is facing many environmental challenges, from climate change and pollution to deforestation and the loss of biodiversity. We are all responsible for addressing these issues and working to create a sustainable future for future generations. Through this forum, we aim to highlight how design can play a crucial role in creating sustainable solutions and shaping a better future for our planet. From eco-friendly products and renewable energy to sustainable architecture, urban planning, and the design of future work. The possibilities are endless, and we are excited to explore them together. Today, we are pleased to partner the Straits Times to bring you the SUTD Design Innovation Forum. Our speakers and panelists are distinguished experts in their various fields, such as architecture and urban planning, consumer goods, digital transformation, services, and education. They will share their insights into the importance of sustainable design and how it can be harnessed to create innovations for a happier and more sustainable world. First, we are honored to have SUTD's president, Professor Chong Tao Chong, to deliver the first keynote on the importance of institutes of higher learning to sustainability in Singapore. Prof. Chong, please.
Check. Can you hear me at the back? Okay, right. Good, thank you. Yeah. Very good afternoon to everyone. Today, my topic is about the importance of IHL to sustainability in Singapore. Now, I was asked to talk about the role of IHLs in promoting sustainability. I thought it's a very timely topic because I think it is really a good platform for us to nurture future generation of leaders and innovators that can contribute to these very important topics here. Now, why we think IHL is an important so-called platform for us to promote sustainability? I think, first of all, IHL actually helps for research and innovation in sustainable technologies and solutions. They can access to a diverse range of academic resources. I mean students, researchers, faculty, and also their partners as well, right? They have also a wide range of expertise across multi-disciplines because sustainability is a very interdisciplinary issue that we deal with. Also, the university have this state-of-the-art research facilities, laboratories, and also equipment that can be used to conduct cutting-edge research and also development for sustainable technologies. So these resources can help researchers to explore new ideas and develop prototypes and models for sustainable technology and solution. Now, second, IHLs are also collaborators with industry partners, not just private sector, but also government agency, to develop and implement sustainable solutions. Now, this close tie is very important because it creates that opportunity for collaboration between researchers and business, and therefore bridge the gap between academic research and also practical application, so that ensure that the solution that they develop are both effective and also economically viable. Now, third is IHL is really the key mission here, providers of education and training in sustainability-related fields. Now, it's important that at that age of the young students, to equip them with deep understanding of those challenges that we face under these sustainability issues, and therefore develop problem-solving skill for these complex problems. And another important thing is, I think we should also take the opportunity to nudge behavioral change in early stage of their life, because sustainability will not be sustainable without that kind of individual behavioral change. But at the same time, the IHL today, they are not just talking about pre-employment training. The mission of the IHL now have extended to we call continuous education and training. And this program is important to upskill and reskill our workforce for continuous innovation in sustainable technologies. Right? Now, another important role the IHL plays is they are the providers of research and analysis that inform policy decision related to sustainability. Now, such major source of knowledge and expertise can help shape policy and practice and address the environmental, economic, and also social challenges facing societies around the world. Last but not least, I think this is about being a promoter of community engagement and also outreach in sustainability initiatives. IHL often partners local community, organizations, schools, and also government agencies to support and promote this kind of sustainability initiative. And also, it's a good so-called environment to develop students become ambassadors of sustainability through public and community activities and on sustainability education, conservation, and also all the sustainable development issues, right? Now, if you look at global examples, there are actually many universities in the world are already playing this vital role. I just list some of them here. For example, MIT have their climate collab and also the sustainable supply chain program. And they partner with a United Nations Development Program and also the World Wildlife Fund, right? The other example is UC Berkeley. They have the Green Labs program. Again, they always have important partners there that you can see from here. And also another one, I think, which we have a close relation partnership with is the Zhejiang University Institute of Green and Intelligent Technology. They also partner with like Cambridge University, MIT, and UC Berkeley, and so on. So this is a global scene. There are many examples we can give, but I think we just list down the key one. Now, local, we have, of course, almost all our universities that are already, involved in this initiative. So NTU have this renewable energy collaboration with ENGIE, it's a company. And NUS have this sustainable smart campus in collaboration with Kappa Corporation. And SMU has sustainable business collaboration with Singapore Business Federation. And SUTD, we have this design collaboration with Sabana Jurong and also Capital Land. Now, so let me maybe focus on what SUTD's, how we develop our capability and all the R&D in sustainability. So we have to focus on something, right? Because this sustainability issue is very, I would say, multifaceted. So for SUTD, our focus is on circular economy. Why? Because our SUTD, we call the interdisciplinary and also design DNA, is key to circular economy. If you just look at this diagram, we show the circular economy, how it works. That means how we produce and also consume things, right? So we started with raw materials, then we go through the design and fabrication process, produce the things that we use, and then after that, we just normally dispose, but some of them go back to this ecosystem. Now, I think if we look at design, this is the key parts that we can make circular economy works. Because when you look at all those questions listed on the right here, right? Like for example, can the product be designed with recycled materials instead of raw? And is the product optimized for minimal material use and so on? That actually address the three important issues for circular economy, which is how can we reduce, right? Reduce new materials needed. And the rest of the question, you can see, is actually addressing how we can increase the reuse and also increase the recycling. So design actually play a key part in this circular economy. So for SUTD, we look at this issue about circular economy and come up with this concept map. So actually there are three verticals, namely behavior, so we're talking about nurturing behavior, the design, of course, is circular design, and of course, the network, which we're looking at net zero. These are the three strategic focus areas that we will develop deep so-called capability in that. But we also have 3 horizontals, as shown here, that cut across, right? And these are interdisciplinary system of systems challenges. For example, circular economy, habitat, urban metabolism, smart social change for circular economy. So maybe I can look at how do we implement this concept map. So this is how we see. There are 3 components, 3 approaches. One, I think, is to seed sustainable research, innovation, and enterprise. Second is about education for sustainable action to nurture the next generation of leaders. And third is about our campus, right? Transform our campus into what we call OASIS, that stands for Open Arena for Sustainable Innovation and Solutions, blurring this line between research, learning, and campus management. And all these 3 approaches, they work together in an ecosystem, so they cannot be isolated in that sense, and to deliver what we call a more sustainable and happier world. So perhaps let me just go through these 3 approaches in slightly more details, right? So first, about research. So we aim to develop innovative and sustainable solutions to the real-world problems through interdisciplinary research that integrate engineering, computing, architecture, humanities, and social sciences. I think that is really the challenge for looking at problems that we are going to solve for sustainability. It's very much interdisciplinary. So if you look at how we so-called plan our research areas, so we take maybe the first horizontal, for example, circular economy, habitat. So you can see we have, this is just a few examples. We have, for example, first one is about distributed carbon capture, urban built environment, then about digital material reuse from food for food. And you can see all these things, all these research areas actually require multidisciplinary effort here. So we have faculty from science, from engineering, from system, from architects, all work together. And it is not just confined to faculty. In fact, we are quite happy that through our research, through our pedagogy in design, students work on projects, so they also contribute to some of these important so-called design issues. So we have a group of students who work on the project in their capstone that look at something we call, build a modular self-sustainable floating platform that uses sea space for productions, industry, and commercial use. And after the capstone, the students actually go out, form a company they call the C-Forms. So I think this is quite encouraging to see how we bring research into the real world there. Then we have urban metabolism under the second horizontal, and we have some example here. So I won't go through it because we just give you some example of what we do here. Then the third one is about the smart social change, the horizontal 3. So we again have a few projects that is going on. And another example is I mentioned about student involvement. So we have another student capstone project also working on this. So in other words, when we look at this kind of seeding research, right, we try to involve not just the faculty, but also the students and make it into their curriculum, their capstone projects, and so on, right? Okay, so then we look at the second approach, right, in our SUTD sustainability plan. That's education, right? So we leverage on SUTD's, we call our unique interdisciplinary curriculum, and also human-centered design to equip students with knowledge and skill, and also attitudes to address sustainability challenges through collaborative learning, internship, capstone projects, and something we call Europe undergraduate research opportunity focused on sustainability. But at the same time, we also help develop a skilled workforce and future leaders through our CET program, and they can go back to their workplace to drive sustainability practice in various sectors here. So here you can see how we implement this approach, right? So what we do is we integrate sustainability principles into most of our SUTD's design or our project or curriculum there. So we identified key sustainability issues, such as shown on this slide here, health and wellness, circularity, zero carbon, connectivity, and form university-wide design challenges and incorporate them in projects within and across degree program and capstone projects. In fact, in SUTD, before students they graduate from SUTD, almost of them had done more than 20 over this kind of project. So SUTD can make these university-wide design challenges and let the student work on it, not just in 1 year, but across multiple years as well. Now, since we believe that design and sustainability is so important, so we also launch and will be launching, in fact, a minor in sustainability design, and also further develop a CET program we call Zero Carbon for Professional and Individuals. So just let me go through the two that I've shown here. So this is the minor program called Sustainability by Design. So this is actually to prepare students to be responsible and also ethical designer who can make a positive impact on society and the environment, right? And focus on knowledge and tools on sustainability and also design thinking. And with that, we hope to broaden student views on the various environmental and also economic aspects of sustainability. So these are some of the details. There will be so-called core courses, elective, and also humanity courses that make this minor very complete and rigor in that. Now for the CET, we are working, this is still work in progress. What we are going to do is to offer a course we call The Future of Zero Carbon from Buildings to Products and Logistics. Basically, it will talk about the challenges to achieve net zero, and also all these disciplines of energy, utilization, material selection, product design, and manufacturing. Also include sustainable supply chains and transport for healthcare, and how to do sustainability reporting. So I think this will be very useful for organizations that they are professional, they are people looking at these kind of issues. Yeah. Okay, the third one is about the campus, right? So we have three key internal. So I want to talk about the Oasis now. So under the Oasis, the Open Arena for Sustainability Innovation and Solutions, so we have actually three so-called initiatives. Yeah. So one is a living lab. So we make SUTD a living lab. That means we can test-bed sustainability innovation and solution, right? And then further improve it. And if it works, we can collect a lot of data, knowledge, and even further improve all the solutions, and then we can share among participants. So this is making SUTD a living lab, right? But at the same time, because we have this living lab, we can now open our facility for students and also our communities to have this kind of experiential learning. Right? That means you're living in it, you have that kind of learning about all these sustainability prototypes and also social initiatives. And third but not least is about eventually make SUTD a sustainable space that totally transform our campus. Now, if you look at these whole things, right, that's where we thought one of the focus area in our concept map is about nurturing behavior. It is through this everyday thing that they do, we can nudge behavior because I think we all believe that sustainability is not sustainable without behavioral change. Right? So today we have some of these stickers and so on, but important is to remind people that every day is Earth Day in SUTD. So this very little action from the community can help shape the future together, making sustainability a vital part of one lifestyle. So, okay, I think I would conclude my discussion. Yeah. The importance of IHL to sustainability in Singapore. So maybe just highlight the three important roles that I have presented. First is about being the forefront of research and innovation developments. Second, education and training for next generation of sustainability leaders. And third, partnership with government, bodies, industry to implement new technologies. So I believe that collectively, universities can have a significant impact in promoting sustainability and shaping a more sustainable future. Okay, thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you, Prof. Chong, for your profound knowledge and inspiring the institutes of higher learning to take an active role in a more sustainable future. Our next speaker is Ms. Roseanne Ng. Roseanne is the Global Head of Strategy, Innovations, and Education at the Digital Transformation Office at Shiseido. A 25-year-old veteran of the digital tech space, her role involves collaborating with various business units within the Shiseido ecosystem to effectively navigate the constant technological disruptions to capitalize on its promising potential. Roseanne's diverse experiences span global legacy corporations to pioneering tech startups such as Estée Lauder Corporation, W Hotels, Ogilvy One, Halo, and General Assembly. Roseanne will share the future of work in a post-digital era. Please welcome Ms. Roseanne Ng.
Oh, clicker. Thank you so much, Karina. Hello, good afternoon, SUTD. First of all, allow me to say my thanks to Prof. Chong and your team, who have been wonderful hosts. Also to Ms. Chong, who invited us to participate in the Design Innovation Forum. It is such a privilege to be here, and it is also a pleasure to be home. So, Shiseido. Sorry, just give me a quick second. I don't think we have the right setup here. Thank you. So Shiseido was founded in 1872 as a Western-style pharmacy in Japan. And since our founding, our mission has been true, which is to deliver beauty innovations for a better world. Shiseido is a beauty company dealing in skincare, cosmetics, and health and wellness. And we have a strong history of innovations. There are about 5 research centers around the world, the largest being in Yokohama. And we have about 1,200 research scientists working every single day on how we might make this world better through beauty. So some of our delivery to the world would have been the first sanitary toothpaste to Japan. Ordamine is a lotion that is great for preventing lead poisoning back in the days when lead was found in makeup. We also created a lab-grade skin diagnostic tool to empower our beauty consultants to allow our customers to choose the skincare that is actually the most effective for their skin. We also invented hyaluronic acid commercialization production, and most recently figured out how to turn UV rays, which is harmful for your skin, to becoming a friend of your skin, helping to support collagen production. So that is Shiseido. Today, we operate in about 120 countries, and we are home to a portfolio of well-loved brands, such as Drunk Elephant, NARS, Shiseido itself, Clé de Peau Beauté. So, one might ask, what is the relevance of the beauty business in a world of technology and design? Quite a bit, actually, if you were to look at this through the lens of commercial. So the commercial world of beauty is very much revolving around the consumer. No consumer, no business. But the shopper journey used to be very, very simple. It was linear. You may or may not remember, I remember this back in the days, you learn about beauty products through magazines, maybe you talk to a friend, and then you decide that, you know what, I could have this in my repertoire. So you go to the department store, and you talk to the beauty consultant, or you check it out at the pharmacy. Then you purchase it right there. And that was the beauty shopper journey. However, right, our shift to a digital-first society has truly changed the way we do many things. I'm sure many of us who are older can relate. And the beauty shopper today is very much empowered, very well informed. They expect convenience, they expect seamlessness, speed, efficiencies. They also enjoy socializing at their fingertips on their mobile phone. They also enjoy getting entertained. There is a preference for personalized experience because back in the days, TV and magazine was a broadcast, but today with the power of digital, we might know who you are and we might give you something that is relevant to you. Most importantly, the beauty consumer is very much omni-channel. That is to say that you might decide to buy online, pick up in store, or you might just decide that you're just going to buy online on a multi-channel dimension. And so it has truly reshaped our beauty shopper journey. It is no longer linear, as you can see. In fact, it is quite complex. As multi-device, iPhone, iPad, laptop, it is also channel agnostic. They could come by direct from us. They could go to departmentstore.com, or they could be on Lazada. And with Instagram, TikTok, the likes of YouTube, very much so, this has become a mashup of social, and it has been a mashup of entertainment and content. So inevitably, it changes the way we serve the beauty consumer, which inevitably changes the way we think about how we work. So given the spectacular speed of change, the size of our business, and our global footprint, Shiseido decided to embark on an organized digital transformation journey back in 2016, not unlike Singapore, which has its own digital transformation office as well. And all because we need to serve our consumers and meet them where they are at. We focus on 3 areas of importance. First, technology, building out an infrastructure, equipping it with the tools so that we might be able to serve our consumers in the digital channel. Processes, that changes the way we work truly, right? Operating models, what it means to be collaborative, agile. And thirdly, people. Shiseido is very much a people-first company. That is very important to us. And so, one thing to note, and often people forget, digital transformation is people-powered. And so a significant amount of investments had gone into how we think about the future of work and what it means to upskill our workforce. So by 2020, remember, and this is a journey that started from 2016, we had streamlined our operations and delivered on a cohesive set of direct-to-consumer sites equipped with e-commerce capabilities. There were 90 of them. We've also built out an infrastructure that allowed us to service our consumers and build that one-on-one relationship, serving more than over 40 million consumers. And very quickly, when you think about the work of visual merchandisers, brand marketers, salespeople, they began to have to come into the space of digital. They are, of course, very much augmented by a team of software engineers, user experience designers, CRM specialists, data scientists, because after all, data is the backbone of digital. So as the consumer's digital life began to become more robust, and in fact, when COVID happened, it's kind of accelerating 5 years worth of digital transformation really in society within a span of 2 years, right? We asked ourselves, how might we continue to enrich the beauty experience with digital? And most importantly, how will it transform the future of work?
Welcome to the digital life, where we will find more ways to connect. What is the future of beauty? The future of beauty is you, our consumers, shaped by technology, informed by data. You have the power to define, disrupt, inspire, innovate, push boundaries. With digital, you have the power to enhance the lives of our consumers. You have the power to create the future of work.
So during COVID, we were prior to that already reviewing what video could do for our beauty consultants. And so as soon as COVID hit, we were ready. And what we had done was to take the power of video and connectivity and bring the beauty demonstrations that one might see in the stores to the front of the camera, expanding our scope and reach with our consumers. Of course, when you think about what this means, it means that our beauty consultant now had to perform quite differently in front of a camera, but also understand what it means to work with video streaming technologies. We also looked into how we might empower our consumers and our beauty consultants at the same time too when you think about selling makeup. It's very hard to buy makeup online because colors can be quite different. You want to test it out. The women might relate. And so we began to look into how you might use AI, which in this case is about computer vision, augmented reality, to sell, or to create virtual try-ons, if you will, effectively empowering them to be able to buy anytime and anywhere they want. And we, in fact, launched this in the store. And so now you're actually able to try this on hygienically, but more importantly, sustainability. It costs a lot of money and a lot of materials to create tester units. And so without the tester units, it became actually a sustainable proposition for us. So the makeup artistry team now has to kind of step into the world of digital and think about how might you look at a color such as rose in a digital world? And the rendering on your face, your eyes, how might that actually occur from a makeup artistry perspective? We also made accessible our AI-powered skin diagnostic tool. So since the 1980s, Shiseido, as I mentioned earlier, had been a forerunner, if you will, in a lab-grade skin diagnostic tool. And we looked into how we might actually take this into the cloud so that this is accessible anywhere we are, as long as you have a laptop and a camera or a phone. So by re-engineering this technology from a standalone device into the cloud, one of the things that actually worked out well for us is we can continue iterating on it, augmenting this with artificial intelligence, color calibration, and eventually data science, the algorithms that we would write as it relates to the patterns we detect in a particular skin type that the computer can see. And we pulled this all together by now coming back to technology and saying, okay, now with all these tools that we are able to put in the cloud, with video connectivity, how might we then bring our beauty consultants to do a one-on-one personalized expert consultation, if you will, that you might do at the counter? And this actually proved to be a wonderful proposition because there are people who are too shy to go into the store to really talk to a beauty consultant in public. In the world of virtual reality, this was another one that was a great news for many of us. So online shopping is a very mechanical process. I'm sure some of us have been frustrated before. You go onto a website and you're like, I am just looking for this one thing and I cannot find it. And you're trying to navigate around the navigation. So with VR, we reimagine what it is like to really shop online through human-centered experiences. Our hypothesis was this will actually result in more engagement, and it was true. So we launched our first VR store a couple years ago. And in this case, what was important is being able to bring the virtual try-on tools I mentioned earlier, the skin diagnostic tools, the shade finders, onto a shopping experience that is actually 3D. So in this particular case, when you think about the future of work, retail store designers, for example, now have to step into the world of VR and think about how you might design for a store, learning the technologies that will render on the internet. Blockchain. So blockchain is a very polarizing topic, but in this particular case for us, right, what we did notice is that the crypto NFT world is very much heavily dominated by men. And so we thought to ourselves, and because sustainability when it comes to diversity and inclusion is a very important remit for the company, we wondered how we might actually begin to democratize access to digital assets, right, that was skewed male. So our brands came together to think about how we might be able to start delivering on NFTs, for example. So rather than sell them, it became a gift with purchase, for example. And in this particular case that you see, this NAS Hong Kong 20th anniversary PFP, surprisingly for us, we had a redemption of almost 80%. And that is high, because it's not very easy to actually go mint an NFT. That's a story for another day. And then also, I have to say that the most exciting period when it comes to consumer engagement was probably in the last couple of years as it relates to the Metaverse. So the term Metaverse exploded into the consciousness of our society at large, mostly due, in fact, to Facebook changing their name over to Meta. But for us, it was a time of exploration. It was a time of discovery on how we might enter the world of gaming. Remember, it is also about engaging in entertainment. But for us, also, it's important to be educating our consumers, because at the end of the day, beauty is about education. So, I'm not going to go too deep into some of these, but, we explored in Zapato, we were in Roblox, we created 3D environments as it relates to a city, and we actually used Animal Crossing as a way for us to rally our consumers in co-creating a movie. What I'm going to show you next is a short snippet on our NAS Color Quest project on Roblox. Roblox is a gaming platform, and in this particular case, I would love for you to put your hat on in terms of how one might design a world for beauty cosmetic that is going to be productive when it comes to educating our consumers, but at the same time be true to the brand, NARS being a prestige colors brand, but at the same time be able to be engaging enough so that it is not a waste of resources. The project was actually alive for about 3 months and had great engagement, so much so that we're actually investing in one to come, a new one to come. So clearly, the future of work is very much design and tech grounded, more than ever, no matter what industry you are part of. The digitalization of our lives is pretty much ever evolving, right? The world rang in 2023 with generative AI at the tip of everybody's tongue, suddenly forgetting about the Metaverse that they were crazy about the year before, as well as crypto. And in fact, ChatGPT took about 2 months to get to 100 million users, right? Digital is also exponentially accelerating. AI is calculated to actually outpace Moore's law. Well, Moore's law actually would say that computing speed doubles itself every 2 years. Well, since AI came into the consciousness of folks, we have seen that actually computing speed doubles every 3 to 6 months. That's very quick. And finally, there's no end in sight. CB Insights was reporting venture capitalist dollars have very much poured into generative AI this year and has actually superseded what was poured into generative AI last year by 6x. So these three emerging tech has actually generated great excitement, and it is full of promise and potential. In fact, especially when it comes to sustainability. In the world of blockchain, Its revolutionary data storage protocols actually will help with financial inclusion as it relates to the underbanked, especially for women in societies whose place are very much defined by men in their lives. Data is very traceable, it's transparent, which allows us to then hold giant corporations accountable to their actions. Identities can be verified digitally, and most importantly, blockchain has been pegged as the technology that facilitates climate action projects. The Metaverse, right, the internet in 3D. So long-distance collaboration is now very possible, simulated environments, which then also promises to reduce carbon footprint. In fact, yesterday I was privy to a little talk at SUTD about Campus X, which is something that they're exploring, which is very exciting. Finally, AI. AI promises operational efficiencies. It promises for us human productivity, which is also about work-life balance. And for us as a consumer product company, it promises great customer experience. More importantly, because of the powers of AI, it's able to detect pollution, it's able to detect illegal land use, it can track and monitor relentlessly, which then allows us to forecast better with the data that's being picked up, and therefore plan better when it comes to climate actions. But I will be really remiss not to mention that there is a colossal cost of carbon on the environment when it comes to IT. So the internet is, after all, the world's largest machine when you think about it. And with the adoption of cloud computing, data centers underpin our digital lives, which requires a huge amount of energy and a huge amount of water to cool it down. So the Harvard Business Review published in 2020 that the world today uses or the internet's contribution to the world's carbon emission is about 2%. And left unchecked by 2040 is going to contribute 14%. To put this into perspective, that is about the carbon emissions the United States produces today. That's a lot. And we're not even really talking about that back in 2020 when it comes to AI. And now there's all this AI hype. Let's recalculate that. Just to put more things into perspective, ChatGPT-3 has been calculated to emit about 123 cars worth of annual carbon emission. The training model only, not even the use of it. And when you think about the Metaverse, which is very much about spatial computing, requiring like super chip computing, lots of data, lots of AI, and the blockchain. Compound all that. What does that mean for the climate and the environment? So Shiseido, the name Shiseido is a Japanese name, yes, but it comes from a phrase in the Chinese classic text, the I Ching, and it comes from this line that says, praise the virtues of the earth, the source of valuable life. And since our founding, in our name, we have always had this respect for planet, society, and people. And we have a strong commitment to sustainability. And I'm not really here to talk about what we've done, but roughly it is about environment and society, and that's our core focus. And in fact, I encourage you to check on our website as we've just released a 2022 report in terms of our impact. But I'm here today because of our commitment to sustainability to share with you how we might pursue digital responsibly. So how might we decarbonize digital? Like anything that needs to be designed, it's about architecture. So architecting a space or building, you talk about sustainability. Architecting systems and software and data systems as well is also about ensuring low carbon emissions. So when you think about the cloud, right, data centers, is the cloud green? What is the blockchain protocol that we're using? Are we actually designing it in such a way where we are reducing data requests and minimizing load times and latency? In how software is developed, not all programming languages are made the same, let's be very clear. Are we choosing the right programming languages for the system that we're trying to design? And finally, right, but when it comes to software, writing efficient code. And in my time in technology, I have met developers who don't write efficient code, who don't write efficient algorithms, and that's a big load on the earth. Finally, the last thing, how software is used, and this is where design comes in. A frustrated user means multiple clicks. Multiple clicks, every time there's a click, there is carbon being emitted. So collectively, imagine if we have bad user experience design, how many unnecessary clicks and data requests might result as because it wasn't well thought through. So responsibly pursuing digital technology is everybody's business, whether you are a technologist or whether you are a journalist. At the end of the day, it is important to have that awareness, which is why I'm here today to talk to you about this. More than awareness, it's important to have basic literacy and knowledge when it comes to how this might work. Only then can we make mindful choices about technology. And most importantly, as everything needs to be measured, because only when we measure and monitor can we actually make improvements. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Roseanne, for giving us a unique perspective. I'm sure cosmetics is seldom discussed in engineering or architecture circles, so it's indeed an eye-opener. Now, our third speaker is Professor Nathalie de Vries. Professor de Vries is the founding partner of MVR-DV and had led many successful projects focusing on inventing new building typologies and creating changeable open systems. Besides her work at MVR-DV, Professor de Vries is also a professor at the Faculty of Architecture at the Delft University of Technology. Please welcome Professor Nathalie de Vries.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, SUTD, for inviting me to be at this exciting place. And I had the opportunity to walk around yesterday at the faculty, and I got even excited ever more. So I'm taking you back now to the physical world of architecture and urban design, and I'm going to talk to you about the concept of multiplicity in design as part of innovation of design methodology. And why is that so important? Well, in our office, this is the Rotterdam base where I'm stationed, and we have offices around the world in Shanghai, Paris, Berlin, and New York. Design and innovation is an important driver of our work. How can we be ahead of the curve and at the same time make nice and exciting places for everyone? So no mystery to all of you, of course, that also in the building industry, digitalization has become a huge driver, and it also entered the design process already some time ago. Also, we have to deal, of course, as our industry is a very polluting industry to a certain degree, uses a lot of energy and carbon, we have to start to make a contribution as soon as possible to make sure that climate change is not accelerating even more. And it's also a cultural act, the act of designing architecture and urban planning. And there's so many other aspects that are also important to make good and sustainable buildings and environment, and they are really nicely summoned in the 17 Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. It's also about equality and about cultural value and about the life on water and sea and well, I'm not going to mention all 17, but you know where I'm aiming at. So as a teacher, I thought all the nice things we do in our practice, how can I also convey that attitude to students? And I'm nowadays talking about design property called multiplicity. It's about the and that we have to add to our designs. In short, it's very important, I think, to make buildings less singular in function, more productive, transformative, and resilient. And how do we do that? I'm going to show that to you in some of our built examples. So first of all, less singular in function. Yes, that's an important change. We don't think about singularity anymore, about single functions, just being a building for one function. It's so much more important to start to combine functions. Heard today that SUTD not just wants to be a faculty, a university, but also an inspirational hub where everybody can come and learn about new futures. This is a new building we made in Rotterdam. It houses an art depot. Now, normally you don't go to art depots, of course, they're closed spaces. But we not only made it reflective, but we also added on top of it a rooftop with trees and greenery that everybody can access. So it's also standing in the middle of a park. So we start to use the roof surface, but we also start to make it accessible. So it becomes a place of education, it becomes a place that you can visit, that you can find your favorite art. So suddenly the 90% of the art that is never shown to the audience and to the public, owned by the people of Rotterdam, is accessible again, and you can see how art is restored. You can maybe ask to show to you your favorite art piece. So suddenly a building that would not be accessible becomes public, and much more buildings actually can have that. So if we start to do that, we create more space. We have ever more people, but we should also think more about the doubling of functions in our buildings. Singularity also happens in housing, of course, so we're very glad that we could contribute to this project for client CDL, together with ADDP architects here in Singapore, to work on this more efficient building system called PPPC, and to see if we can still make it in such a way that you can find some individuality in it, that we can add nice outdoor spaces to it, that we can add collective spaces to it. So this is under construction right now. And we know that this way of building is, of course, a sustainable way of building. It shortens the building time. You have less people on site. The construction sites tend to be smaller, but we also still want to make it a happy place and give room for individual expression and individual qualities. Another aspect of building design is productivity. Yes, so instead of using resources, buildings can also be productive. What if they started to source energy instead of just using it? Maybe you have to start to clad more buildings in PV cells, but why not? And do you think that you can still have a look outside in this building? Yeah, it has production facilities. It's in Taiwan for Taipower, but the offices also have windows, so you start to diversify those panels and create and use more different types of panels. And we can use design and scripting to optimize, to make the best panel, to put the best panel on the best orientation of the building and shape the building accordingly. So you see how technology also starts to create whole new shapes of building. We have to be efficient, for example. So make sure that our buildings are that our cities are used in an efficient way. So we did a study for the city of Rotterdam to see how their densification plan, their high-rise plan, and their aims for making enough sunlit spots at the same time made more visible. So usually these building guidelines for cities can be very abstract. Of course, you have this beautiful city model here in Singapore, but we can also use technology like this. And this was for the city of Rotterdam, to visualize actually the impact and the consequences of their own building regulation. Now, is this, so what we see here first is the maximum building envelope in the high-rise zones. And then further on, and in yellow, these sunspots and daylight spots. And now we help with our digital design team next to visualize the impact of regulation on the individual building plots that exist. So we called it Solar Polis. You see here the voxelization, all the information being attributed. You start to get a bit dizzy now, but nevertheless, this is of course a process that incredibly speeds up research that would, without technology, take much longer. But we also are able now to visualize something which might, to some people, look utopian and to others maybe dystopian. But in any case, it is a way to envision a possible future, which is also an important role for us architectural designers, to show that future. And maybe able, because we visualize it, also to intervene in it and say, yeah, this is what I want, but this is something I do not want. So you saw it in a kind of virtual world, but you can also do it already in the real world. In this building, for example, all these effects of air and light and using multiple functions in tall buildings were all combined. And we use that technology to shape actually this multifunctional building. Yes, like I said, the building should also be productive. We add green. We also added public space again. You can walk all the way up to the heart of the building, but we also optimize it. It's a complex building, so we needed this technology also to figure out how many modules we should make to still keep the building design efficient and not and to create this very irregular building. So you can't read this, doesn't matter, just showing all the techniques. And can you only then make parametrics design that look very complicated, is maybe what you are thinking? No, you can also use the same technology and the same things to make more regular buildings, like this master plan in Brussels, the 2 towers on the right. We made the master plan, we are also going to make these towers, and you see a much more regular building, but we still start to apply the same techniques to it. For example, big building, how can we reduce the carbon usage in our buildings? This is one of the most important topics at the moment. So in the past 3 years, our office started to develop what's called a carbon calculator. Now you saw us already adding influences on light and wind in our designs, but we also start to add now information about how much carbon our building is using. So this you might start to recognize now, the optimization of the shape, using and creation of multiple surfaces, gathering spaces also higher up in buildings, but also transformability is important. So maybe in the future we want to transform part of this housing or office building into another use. So how are we going to do that in an efficient way? And did you know that a very large part of embodied carbon in buildings is actually put into the structure of buildings? So it makes it really essential already from the beginning of our design to start to think and to calculate, even in the earliest sketches, how much impact the way we create the building shapes and we organize these grids and this structure have an impact. So our carbonscape sources information from different materials so that we can start to calculate what would be the most efficient building construction type. In this case, we're going to mix concrete with CLT, for example, make a much lighter building because of it. And it also can look really great if we have all this wooden ceilings. So we still need concrete here for fire regulations, for example. But so this is a way to reduce the weight and the usage of material, make it flexible. And the same operations as we did for this Taipei Power solar building, we also applied to this more regular building. So each box you see is an iteration of the facade design. And then we can start to design a catalog of possibilities, allowing the building to adapt to different functions, but also different orientations. It makes sense to make a different facade on the north, east, south, or west side, and save energy, use daylight. And in the future, maybe am able to replace facades as well. And of course, it's also interesting then aesthetically. So if this housing and office tower are joined together, how they can create a certain sense of unity as well. And like I said, all together, we are in the midst of the operation of this building permit has been submitted now in the city of Brussels. Already, we realized that we can save almost 50% of embedded carbon by this more sustainable approach to our own design. And we haven't even talked to a contractor yet. So that's very important that architects are becoming aware of this in a much more early phase of their design process. So all these experiences from the past and our new carbon calculator are now embedded in these guidelines that hang as posters in our office, allowing our staff to step by step think in a different way, because we have to change the way we are thinking as architects and designers. I'm not doing the things the same way anymore as I did when I studied 35 years ago. Being more transformative, because we can build, we can demolish, and we can build again, but we can also maybe design for transformability. So you might think like, okay, you can change the function of a building, but maybe you can also take it completely apart. This building was delivered a couple of days ago, opened by the mayor of Amsterdam, because this is a university building in Amsterdam that is completely circular, to that extent that, first of all, it's also a great building. It has these different functions inside. It has labs, meeting places, a big space for bicycles, as you can see, because we're in Amsterdam here. It also acts as a meeting place, as a hub in a research environment. We bring people higher up into the building. We make double uses of stairs and meeting rooms so that it can really act as a social place also in the context. But what we also did is that every piece of furniture, flooring, the layout, technique, the skin, all the materials that went into the building are categorized. And of course also the structural elements put into an inventory. And this inventory means that we know exactly what went in it, and that we made sure that 90% of all the materials in this building can be reused after taking this building apart again. So that's an incredible amount of information, of course, also about a building that we've used from the BIM model, but also went into the design details. You might think, does anybody still know in 60 years from now or whatever, what went into this building? Yes, we can, because in the Netherlands there's now a registration system called Madaster, where you can register all these materials. So they are and they will stay accessible for future uses and for others who are looking for sourcing materials. Last topic I'm going to talk about is resiliency and climate change. So yes, we are designing for a different future nowadays. We need to we have to keep our cities inhabitable. So here an old shopping mall in Taiwan was converted into a great public space, a lot of water. The old resources were used. There's a water buffer now, but it also doubles as a great public space where you can hang out if it's getting really hot. It was a remark I heard a couple of times in the last days, like how hot is it now in Singapore? But not even in Singapore, also in the Netherlands. We have increasingly hot days. So it's important to make public spaces that can deal with it. Now this is still a predictable future because we know temperatures are rising and getting more extreme. But what if you are a city that has to deal with sea level rise? How to design for that? And that's maybe a last design tool and innovation that I would like to show to you now. And that's the element of another catalog. So not of individual materials, but of design possibilities. So the city of Vancouver asked different design teams to participate in a challenge to think about the city of Vancouver in the year 2100, when the sea level will certainly have risen for 1 meter or more. And how to start to respond to that now. Because if you do that in the next decade, you will be probably too late. So can we create a toolbox of approaches? Now, this is an aerial view of Vancouver. And you see in the middle, which is a sea arm called the False Creek. It's already become quite narrow because you might understand that a lot of areas have been built into that water, as into the sea. And if you start to think about what 1 meter of sea level rise will mean, not just the light blue areas, but they're like intertidal. There's a lot of land, like the whole right part, is just disappearing underwater. So what should we do? Should we just build more dams and hide ourselves behind ever more big walls? Is that even possible in such a complex urban environment? No, we have to start to investigate, like, how are we going to invest where on the water's edges? So maybe we have to put vital infrastructure more inwards. We have to start to make water buffers so that when water comes in, we can store it temporarily. We have to move up plant rooms in a building that are now on the ground floors. And yes, no, we don't want to just, build big walls between us and the water, because these are the nicest environments, actually, in a city. So a couple of examples, we start to envision what can happen. First of all, a little bit of retreat and already more interaction with water is possible. There can be areas that can be flooded, but we can maybe also add new items that can move up and down with water level differences. And then eventually, our water edges are in a certain way renaturalized again and become more tidal. And very interesting is that for people who have originally lived in these areas, who are also part of our design team, say, well, we recognize this. This is actually going back to a more original landscape that was once here. And we can start to turn it into productivity again, harvest food, use it for interaction with the water, but part of the buildings will have transformed and retreated, maybe a bit like this old shopping mall I showed you in Tainan. And we realized that what we're actually making is a set of guidelines, what to do and what not to do, to upgrade, to adapt, to reshuffle, to reorganize, make stuff more flood-proof, but also designing a kind of catalog, what to do with what is already there, and to transform our existing buildings into buildings that can handle different ways of floating, and over time, different types of sea level rising. And all of this can also be added with new stuff that you can add in the intertidal zones that can work with different sea levels, buildings that adapt themselves, new functions. So we're not just going away, but actually going to live with the water. And when we design such a catalog of possibilities, the city of Vancouver can step-by-step develop a program to adapt, but it can also discuss with the very visual design proposals in the catalog with the community, as the same community that already helped us to make the designs that we have made today. And maybe the future can start to look like this, but with other elements of the catalog also like this. So, and with this project and some last images of another area that is up for change, I'd like to end my lecture today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. De Vries, for sharing your groundbreaking work. Singapore needs that stuff as the sea rise too. So today we are very honored to have a distinguished guest, our Deputy Prime Minister Heng Swee Keat. So DPM Heng chairs the Tripartite Future Economy Council, which oversees the ongoing restructuring of our economy through the upgrading of skills of our workers and transformation of industry to create better career prospects for our people. And he is also the chairman of the National Research Foundation, which sets the direction of Singapore's research, innovation, enterprise, RIE, strategies, as well as integrate RIE and industry transformation efforts. Please join me in welcoming Deputy Prime Minister Heng Swee Keat on stage for the panel discussion. Welcome, Deputy Prime Minister Heng Swee Keat. May I now also invite the panel members on stage. Welcome again. Welcome, DPM Hing.
Hi.
So before we start the panel discussion, we would like to invite DPM Hing to say a few words about this forum. DPM Hing Swee Kiat, please.
Oh, I didn't know you were going to start with me. I thought Tao Chong had a whole series of questions. Well, first, I'm very happy to be here with all of you, talking about technology, design, innovation, and I think this SUTD Design Innovation Forum is a very valuable one. I understand that this year you are talking about sustainability, and that is a critical issue for Singapore and for the world. So I look forward to a very interesting discussion with my fellow panelists and also with all of you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, DPM Hing.
Yeah.
So before we start the panel discussion, let me quickly introduce Professor Tai Lee Siang, who will moderate the panel session.
Yeah.
So Professor Tai is Center Director for Design Z and Head of Pillar for Architecture and Sustainable Design degree program, as well as Program Director of Design and Artificial Intelligence degree program. So they will be discussing the questions that you have sent in during registration. So ladies and gentlemen, please.
Well, good afternoon, DPM.
Yeah.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sure you agree with me that we have heard 3 inspiring speeches. More to come, especially we're going to hear more from DPM as well. Now, I just want to set the context. As you know, that the global discussion on sustainability today tend to focus on mitigation and adaptation. Now, it somehow makes sustainability feels like a salvage operation. The race against time to carbon neutrality is on the mind of everyone, yet most would agree that this is almost impossible to achieve just entirely based on individual effort. Escalating costs have made investment in green technology not always immediately viable, and carbon credits and purchasing of remote renewables seems unavoidable. This is the backdrop. Now, interestingly, during COVID, I'm sure many of us experienced a world brought to its knees and abandoned all its regular functions to battle a more urgent health calamity. Now, but something changed during crisis. The world woke up to the fact that digital transformation helped overcome the constraints of isolation. Businesses can be conducted without physical contact. In fact, it could be said that carbon emission dropped during the pandemic. It gives us a glimpse that perhaps somewhere and something could be designed to achieve the dream of carbon neutrality. Now, this afternoon, I'd like to direct our attention on how we might design for a sustainable world. So first of all, DPM, I'd like to invite you to give us the planned short opening remarks about today's theme. As many of you heard from Karina, that DPM also serves as coordinating minister for economic policies. In this regard, I believe your opening remark will center on how to build a sustainable economy. DPM, please.
Well, thanks. So let me start by talking about what a sustainable economy is. There are at least 4 dimensions to sustainable economy. The first dimension is about the sustainability in the environmental sense, that economic activities and what humans have done to the globe, can be very, very bad for the planet. And therefore, how do we have economic growth, but at the same time that we take care of the planet? So in the environmental sense, that's one dimension. The second is sustainability in the form of our social support and social consensus for what we do. Because at the end of the day, economic growth is not for its own sake. It is to make life better for people. And we have to ask, how is my life better? And the third dimension is in the economic sense. I was running the Monetary Authority of Singapore during the global financial crisis, and I was Minister for Finance during the COVID crisis. You'll find that the global economy goes through very sharp cycles, and sometimes some of these
growth have come through very rapid expansion of debt, of financial instruments, or of excessive spending. So it gives a very short-term boost, but it's not sustainable. It will come to an end, and sometimes very badly. And the fourth dimension, I would say, is resilience. A sustainable economy should be resilient in that it is able to bounce back from downturns like that, especially from very sharp downturns. So let me say a few words about each of these and what we can do about it. So on the environmental sense, we are very fortunate in Singapore that, this year is Mr. Lee Kuan Yew's 100th birth anniversary. And one of his consuming passion is about trees. He loves trees. We are very rare as a city, a state, to have such a high percentage of green cover, to have trees all over. I'm very glad that Minister Desmond Lee is continuing with that, with his 1 million tree program. They're going to plant 1 million trees, hopefully at least 10,000 by the end of this year. So I think taking care of our environment is not just about trees, but also about how we reduce, recycle, reuse, so that we minimize waste. And in Singapore's case, this is again very important because we only have one landfill, one little island, Pulau Semakau. So if we keep polluting, where are we going to throw all this waste? So how do we close the waste loop? How do you develop a more circular economy? A very important aspect of this environment. So the other aspect is that the environment is not just about rising sea level, because changing temperature changes the whole globe's, the whole planet's biosystem. Right? The whole ecosystem will be affected, and when we talk about food security and so on, changing temperature affects the ocean in a very deep way, affects life on land, on sea, in the ocean, and that will have very significant consequences, not just for Singapore, but for the whole world. By the way, there's an excellent exhibitions at the Botanic Gardens on climate change and the oceans. So if those of you who are interested, go and take a look. It's a very good exhibition. So I would say that the environmental part of it, even as we grow the economy, is important. The second area which I mentioned is about social. Now, I do believe that future economic growth is going to come from technology and innovation. If you look at the progress in digitalization, in AI, it is going to have a very significant effect on the future of jobs and the future of skills. Now, are you going to have a world where machines and AI system replaces all human, including professors in SUTD? Or are you going to have a world where humans learn how to make the best use of all this technology? Are we going to have a world where the professors who know how to use the AI system will replace the professors who don't know how to use the AI system or refuse to use the AI system? So I think those are the questions about whether can you sustain what we do today, or do we pretend that the technological innovation is not going to affect us, therefore we just carry on as before. And on the social economy, on the economic side, with the digital technology, with greater digitalization in the global economy, I think all of you are familiar with the term unicorn. And what a digital economy does is that you have very outsized gains because you can now reach a global market, which you previously cannot. And therefore, the winners in this game will take a lot more than the losers. And in fact, there's a lot of discussions about whether we should even start thinking about a universal basic income, where you don't have to work, but you'll get a universal basic income. Now, I think it's a bit too utopian at this stage that we all don't have to work, we get a universal basic income. But I think the impact of technology on jobs and whether you can sustain the consensus for doing it is going to be
a major issue in the coming years. Probably less so for Singapore because we are having a small population, a declining population, and an aging population. So I think we should warmly welcome all this new innovation. But if you are in a developing country with a big young population, hoping to gain a population dividend from a youthful population, but having a rather underfunded education system, it is going to be an issue. Because the advances in robotics, in AI, is going to change the shape of economy significantly. And finally, in terms of resilience, whether we can bounce back. And I think whether we can bounce back as a country from these rapid changes and sustain our economic growth depends on whether first do we have the financial resources to bounce back. So I'm glad that during COVID, I had to do 5 budgets. As finance minister, and we spent $100 billion more, which was usually a 1 year's budget. So we spent in 1 year what we normally do in 2 years. And without borrowing a single cent. I see many young people here. You are the biggest beneficiary of this. Because you are not the ones to have to pay for, what we just spent. We are fortunate that our pioneer generation, our pioneer leaders, left us this savings to let us use when the crisis came. So I would say that that's one aspect. But the other important aspect, as we saw during the COVID crisis, is not just about financial resilience, but also social resilience. Whether we have enough trust in our society, enough care and concern for others, that we all pitch in together, that even in a major crisis, we can come together and overcome it together. So I know you might be thinking very much more about environment.
No.
But I think the term sustainability has many dimensions. If we define sustainability as something which we can carry on into the future, into the long future, then it's not just about the environment. The environment is one critical component, but it is all these other things that allow us to continue to be successful, to be a place where our young people can grow up and say, I have a future in this place.
Thanks, DPM. In fact, we are not here to discuss just about environmental sustainability. And thank you so much for setting the stage for a much more comprehensive and wide coverage on the topic of sustainability. Right. But just a quick follow-up question. Now, of course, the professors are probably quite excited about your speech, but what about our young people? What do you think are the challenges for them moving forward, given this huge concern for climate change and global warming in the context of Singapore? What can they look forward to?
Well, I think there are huge challenges, but also huge opportunities. The huge challenge is that Singapore can do everything that we can, but our emission is less than 1% of the world. So the big question for us is there going to be a good global consensus? So I'm glad that most countries have, almost all countries have decided to stick to the Paris Agreement, and then we'll continue to have the COP meeting, and I hope that the COP meeting can continue to bring parties together. It's not just Singapore, it's not just the Netherlands, it's not just but the whole world need to be very serious about this issue. By the way, a few years back, I visited the Netherlands, and the one thing which I heard very much, which I like very much, is that God created the world, but the Dutch built Netherlands. Because about a third of the land are below the sea level, and your polder technology was so wonderful. By the way, we have started experimenting with polders in Singapore to see how we can protect ourselves better. And I visited Delta, a very, very good company. So I think getting the world to work together on this issue, and in fact, I think the Dutch can lead the effort in this area, that, getting the world to take this issue seriously will be one big challenge. And I hope that our professors, our students, when you are interacting with students and professors from all over the world, help to point out how serious this an issue is, and B, work together with like-minded partners to not just talk about it, but do something about it. So I'm glad that, for example, we are an important financial center. So the government has issued green bond. The Monetary Authority of Singapore has a green finance task force looking at how Singapore can help to catalyze the flow of financial resources to tackle real-world challenges. And I hope that we can do our part. And we can also, in terms of for the students, I hope that some of you will think about doing R&D work on sustainability, whether it's about the energy transition which the whole world has to go through, whether it is about life on Earth and about what we can do to understand the ecosystem better, to understand how we can do part of this work. I just spoke to Prof. Chua in SUTD. Where's Prof. Chua? He must be somewhere, yes. And Prof. Chua is a leading expert on 3D printing. We just had a fascinating discussion about 3D printing of food. If we can 3D print food, we will significantly reduce food waste, and we can do a lot more on that. So I'll say, yes, the challenges for Singapore and for all of us here is that to really tackle climate change, you need a global consensus. You need global action. So what is it that we can do to help that? And whether it is about working with like-minded partners, working on the series of upcoming COP meetings, whether it is about working with financial services firms, working with companies to make the effort count, so that companies don't feel that, heck, I'm spending money to do this, and I'm getting nothing back, and my competitors are getting away with it. So one of the things that we have done is to have a carbon tax, and I announced the first carbon tax 3-4 years back. We have started collecting this year. We're going to flow it to companies to do work on the carbon, to reduce their carbon footprint. I'm hoping that, and Minister Lawrence Wong has announced, DPM Lawrence Wong rather, has announced the trajectory of our carbon taxes. So we are going to send the right signal that you either do something or you'll be out. Yeah.
So, DPM, shall we just borrow the quote from our Dutch friend and say something like, if God created this world, Singaporean create Singapore?
We will have to learn from the Dutch how to build more polders and safeguard our little island.
Thank you. Thank you for the very inspiring speech. Right. Natalie, I'd like to just bring you to talk about sustainability in relation to cities. I found a quote on your website that says, the next step in our sustainability ambitions means thinking bigger, working for countries, regions, and cities to make sustainable strategies and visions. We show governments, institutions, and citizens a variety of possibilities for their future, combining insight into cities and infrastructure and understanding of economics and policy, and the art of making visionary ideas tangible. Now, I'm a firm believer that cities is actually one of the starting point of designing sustainability to prevent, again, global warming. Considering the ever-increasing density of Asian cities particularly, and therefore the greater pollution, can existing cities be redesigned?
Yes, and this is one of the reasons why data and design tools to use them is so important, because we are with ever more people, we have to share and do in our space ever more things. We need climate change approaches, we need more green, we need different transport systems, we need to use the space with ever more people and still feel comfortable in it and share it in an equal way. And the nice thing about using data is that we can make it much more visible and somehow comprehensible. And then we can start to make choices. But one of the great things, of course, about a city is that they're usually well-organized systems already. I wouldn't dare to bring in the whole world as a DPM, maybe does, but I think cities are communities Cities have overview, cities have good interest. So cities are a very good scale and place to begin with the transformation of the future. And as I showed, cities like Rotterdam are interested in figuring out, are we making good use of our land? And we can also bring in other aspects of good urban planning into the equation. And as designers, we can start to visualize that as well, because we want to understand what we are going towards. So we can help by imagining possible futures. It's maybe not always the future, but when I walked around here yesterday, I also saw the students here trying to grasp what is ahead of us, and then we can start the discussion also.
Right, so I believe you've spent a short time in Singapore, and again, you might have visited us before. Singapore, probably a little bit like Rotterdam, is quite a young city, not Amsterdam for sure. So you probably find quite a lot of buildings that were developed since our nation founding, since the 60s, 70s, 80s. There's been a lot of talk about conservation of building of that period, the modern era. What are your views in terms of keeping them and yet make economic sense at the same time dealing with the issue of sustainability?
Yeah,
because they are quite different from historical heritage buildings.
They are, but especially in the 60s, we used to build in a quite sturdy way. Yeah? It has a name, brutalism.
Yes.
And actually, nowadays, it's something very interesting, because there are firm structures, and we can, to some degree, open them up and reuse them and repurpose them. And by doing that, slight transformation, we start to love them again as well. And sometimes they even can work as foundations for taller buildings as well. So, are we going to completely transform all our cities? No, it is good to reuse and repurpose also as much as possible. And I think some of the open building systems that were advocated in the late functionalist architecture period still can be very well used nowadays, whereas maybe more economically driven buildings made in the 80s and the 90s somehow seem sometimes to be much less repurposable. So, and in any case, Singapore also leads the way to many cities in, for example, the Netherlands, by your very active use of green in and on buildings,
Yes.
for example. So often also images from buildings from Singapore pop up in the examples that are shown in, for example, the Netherlands. So I think it's already interaction. So that's wonderful.
Yeah, we have a lot to learn. And I mean, I found a few examples that you showed that are very exciting, that how even disused building in the 80s could turn into something quite interesting.
And I think also we have to keep on keeping up the dialogue, because we have been building dikes, indeed,
Yes.
and organizing it kind of bottom up. But we also discovered that we cannot heighten the dikes forever. So also the Dutch now learn to live in a more fluent way again with water and rivers and changing tides. So we were lucky also. I showed a project from Vancouver where we indeed brought in the engineers of Deltares with us. But we also collaborated with the local design firms, local landscape architects, indigenous architecture. So it was really a collaboration on how to deal with climate change in the future.
Right. Yes. Okay, now I'm going to move on to Roseanne. So you gave a very, very interesting lecture, firstly from a field that SUTD is not exactly familiar or even comfortable with. I'm sure some of our professors will find it a little difficult to respond to all the beautiful colors and pictures. So now I also know that you are a strong advocate for every young graduate must now arm themselves with the understanding of the use of big data. And you have a very, very impressive CV with many big companies that you work for, like W Hotel, Estee Lauder, General Assembly, and now Shiseido. I think we had this conversation at lunch yesterday. We talked about consumption. Today's unsustainable world stems somewhat from centuries, I say centuries, not even decades, of irresponsible consumption to some degree. Now, you mentioned that AI as well is going to increase carbon emission manifold. Now, how would you take this forward, wearing your hat in Shiseido? Are you going to advocate for a different kind of consumption pattern, a more responsible consumption pattern? That's one. Secondly, how do you deal with the issue of being responsible with the use of AI?
Thank you for asking that question. So it is indeed true when you think about the commercial world. You have your shareholders to please, right? What are we growing? How much are we growing? Sell more, buy more. But I think that one of the reasons why Shiseido has been very successful in the category that it's in is it's about effective products. I don't know how many of you have bought products where one try, two try, and it's just not great, and you end up throwing it away. That is wasteful. And which is why we invest a significant amount of our resources in true R&D. Are we going to put a product out in a marketplace that's going to fail the consumer? Absolutely not. In fact, back in the waiting room, the makeup artist was saying, "Oh, I'm using Shiseido foundation." I'm like, "Great." She goes, "This is the best." And it is indeed the best because the formulas makes a big difference. And so for us, first of all, it's about making products that work. Now, second of all, when it comes to sustainability as it relates to the environment, earlier I showed, I talked about our commitment to that. The lowest hanging fruit for us today is plastics. And I think it's true, there was a video showing prior to this session happening about the fact that, plastic is not necessarily the enemy, more than it is how we use plastics. And in fact, I'm very proud to say that, Shiseido has created a collaboration with companies when it comes to material sourcing to be part of a circular economy. We are using polyolefin, which is a plastic that is coming from renewable resources and can be recycled easily. That is an important step to take. We are near our goal of 100% sustainable paper by the end of this year. So we've identified a few low-hanging fruits that we're going to go after, and we have. And I do agree with DPM Heng that it's very much about society at large as well. And so when it comes to beauty, it's very much skewed to women. But beyond gender, it is about quality of life, right? And so when you think about a sustainable world, what does that mean in the context of beauty? So some of you may or may not know this. We have partnered last year with the Singapore Cancer Society it's a lavender ring project. And many people don't really think about the fact that, appearance do matter. It's not about looking the most glamorous you can, but being confident in how you present yourself to the world matters when it comes to happiness. And so we, actually back in 1956, the first thing that we did was spot covers, which is really, a product that services burn victims from the war. And today we have this outfit, this unit called Shiseido Life Quality. And Shiseido Life Quality is about servicing cancer patients and people with skin conditions that is not as easy as applying lipstick. It's specially formulated to help them look and be their best self. And that to us is very important. And one last thing I'll say about this is I think diversity matters. Diversity and inclusion as it relates to gender. And we're proud to say that 50% of our leadership are women. And it does add to the conversation around the mindset of what it means from a gender perspective. A lot of women are caretakers. And they think differently from men. Nothing necessarily better or worse. It's just complementary. And so when you think about then Mother Earth as it relates to, the actions that we take, every little action as it relates to corporate decisions, the values that we hold on to, and what does that mean for, say, carbon taxes, right? It's going to hurt us from a profitability standpoint, but because it matters so much to us, we're willing to pay that tax. So, yeah.
Thanks, Roseanne. DPM, actually, before you came, Roseanne showed one of the last few slides about how exciting the whole world is about ChatGPT, about AI. And she showed that the energy consumption, because of people using these new technologies almost uncontrollably, went up by 6 times or more? Right.
the investments for generative AI
Yeah.
is 6 times more than 2022.
Yeah.
And we're only in June, mind you.
Yeah.
So no end in sight, really.
So with SUTD promoting AI as well, and the whole world jumping on AI to do things,
Yeah.
what is your message actually?
Yeah, actually, good. Thank you for reminding me that that's that part to the question. I am a proponent of digital. I am a proponent of it because it's kind of irreversible, and it has made quality of life better. But it is about responsible AI, and responsible AI is, first of all, about understanding how AI works, the components that goes into it, and then therefore the choices that you made. So I talk about questioning how green is the cloud that you are using. For the chips, AI requires testing to be accurate. Is that 1% more accuracy necessary for whatever carbon emissions you're going to be making, or is this good enough for now for the purposes that we're in? And so context matters as well. And that critical thinking, one of the, when I first learned about SUTD, realizing that the first year program, I believe, exposes students to humanities. Humanities is one of the most important topics in our world today because it helps you learn to connect the dots about what it means to be humanities, and therefore asking the right questions as it relates to an outcome. And so with AI, so I'm a big proponent also of technical literacy at a young age. I know today we do have it in O-levels. I think about 19 secondary schools offer it. But I'm going to say that we need to start in Sec 1, if not Primary 6. If we're going to have our kids learn about rock formations or how electricity works, why wouldn't we be teaching our kids about how computing works, how the internet works? Because by the time they come to Sec 3 and 4, they understand every single click matters. All this data storage, all these photos that you've taken, 700 of them all up in the cloud, how much data waste is there, and what does that then therefore mean for carbon emissions as well? So AI is not going to go away, but reckless AI is something that we need to be very aware of.
Thanks, very well said. I'm quite sure SUTD will be happy to work on how to bring this right education to even secondary school in preparation for coming to SUTD. So obviously I'm going to turn to Tao Chong now on education matters. Tao Chong, I had some of the most wonderful conversation with you about sustainability. Being an architect, of course, I must confess that environmental sustainability comes first to mind. But as early as my joining SUTD, you started to acquaint me to the idea of sustainability is about people, it's about students. And you talk about the culture of happiness. So how does this approach help groom the next generation of leaders in SUTD? If you could share more on that.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Lee Siang. I think when we started SUTD, we do have a tagline called A Better World by Design. So we use a tagline, but we never question what a better world means to us sometimes. We just say, a better world could be a better life or better what. I think now we come up with a more understanding about a better world. So to us, a better world should be a more sustainable world and also a happier world. Now, why I say had to be happier, because I talk to people who don't really agree with some of the so-called global warming policy and so on. They felt that it will stop them from doing things that they like to do, because that they produce a lot of carbon footprint. So they become unhappy and so on. So I think for SUTD, we hope we can make sure that whatever solution we come up with, people don't take it like I am, like sacrificing my comfort, whatever. But they think that, okay, this is very important that we need to do, and they make it a habit that, okay, become my daily life, I do it. So I become happy to do it. Not that because the camera is on, so I do it. Camera is off, I throw things, right? I think we talk about that. So I think for sustainability to be sustainable, I talk in my talk. I think, of course, we have all these issues that we talk about technology and so on. when it comes to individual, it's really about behavioral change. I don't know, I think DPM, when we were young, we always have this sticker to say water is very precious. Today, I don't know about the young generation. I see them, when they shower for half an hour. So whether, that kind of, you need to be aware. So I think for SUTD, we will focus a lot on looking at behavior as well, because it's one of our so-called framework on our concept map, right, talk about sustainability. And we hope that, when we do this, let's say even we think about it, it's not really about us, really it's about our children generation as well. Because if we don't do that, they may not be able to enjoy the kind of world that we have been, living in. So I hope, that will be a message that we will make sure all SUTD students through our design projects bring in the humanities, social part of it, which I think that is the whole reason why in SUTD 22% of our curriculum is in, we call HAS, humanities, arts, and social science. Yeah. So that I see that, to be a sustainable but also happier world, I think it's a better world. Yeah.
Yeah, so just in case amongst us, the audience, that you're not familiar with SUTD pedagogy, so maybe I just spend 1 or 2 minutes just to explain to you that, well, I sound biased, but I think it's okay. Yeah, so when students join SUTD for the first 3 terms, they will be grouped together as a cohort to learn common subjects. And this is where Tao Zhong talked about the 20%. In fact, not just during freshman, but even during their pillar years when they specialize, they continue to have opportunity to be exposed to subject on humanities, arts, and social science, including capstone project. So, Tao Zhong, from your memory of some of the capstone projects or any of the projects, are there something that kind of leave a strong impression on you about this area of happiness?
Well, I think the capstone projects is not an individual project. In fact, 90% of them, I would say, are sponsored by industry. So industry bring, actually quite difficult problem for our students to address and so on. I think a lot of the things that they talk about, in fact, a lot of the project that our ASD students are doing, I think more aligned with, making the place, more, I would say, improve people's life, And then I think one of the projects also look at a lot of social innovation. Taking care of the elderly, aged. I think we are now super age country. By actually not far, right? By 2030, we will have 1 out of 4, which are older than 65 years old. Sometime this start. So I think a lot of the capstone project, I'm quite happy to see that our students address that, and we even have a so-called challenge that we call it we name it at Create for Good. Yeah. So all this will actually lead to I would say happiness rather than we become the victim of this. We want to be master of all this change. Yeah.
Thanks. So I'm going to pivot to just very quickly a short discussion on the correlation between happiness and sustainability. Just to give you a little bit of evidence of that, I'm going to just quote from Dr. Jan Emmanuel Deneuve, Associate Professor of Economics at SUTD Business School and Director of the Wellbeing Research Center at Oxford, as well as economist Professor Jeffrey Sachs, Director of the Center of Sustainable Development at Columbia University. I quote, "Sustainable development makes people happier. Progress towards the UN Sustainable Development Goals, which cover objectives ranging from climate change adaptation to the eradication of poverty, has a positive correlation with well-being. Countries with a higher SDG index score tend to also do better in terms of subjective well-being, with Nordic countries topping both rankings. Interaction with some of my Finnish friends from Aalto University revealed that they are utterly shocked by this finding, for reasons I don't know. But anyway, I'd like all of you to just comment on this finding about the correlation between happiness and sustainability. Roseanne, do you or Shiseido find happier staff and customers when you try to drive sustainability, and why?
First of all, I have to say that happiness is all contextual and cultural. I have to just caveat that first, right? Because if you grew up in a place where that is a particular kind of normal, then would you equate that with happiness until you see something different? Now, that said, I mentioned earlier that we have a very robust strategic action plan for sustainability goals. And actually, the way we started with how we formulated that plan began with our stakeholders. And our stakeholders were indeed customers. They were also our employees, because our employees are part of the family. Then you have your shareholders and so on and so forth. And what was encouraging is that our stakeholders in general did place a premium, the importance of sustainable goals as defined by the United Nations, right? Which therefore allowed us to arrive at society. We need to care for our society. We also then need to care for our environment. So I would say that, I don't have the data to prove it, but it was very much led by, a questioning with the data behind it to say, all right, so this is how exactly we're going to formulate our plans. The other thing, as a strategist for a commercial, under a commercial organization, is that we often have to be on the pulse of understanding how our consumers are thinking. And for me, what was really encouraging is that the data over time actually does show that the consumers are going to vote with their wallet, and they will walk away from a company who do not have sustainable practices, right? So if I have to correlate that to happiness, I absolutely will, because they are happy to buy your product because you're part of a circular economy, for example.
Yeah, if they're happy to buy a product, I'm sure they are happy, right? There must be some correlation. Natalie, I noticed again under MVRDV sustainability story, it is written, we create happy and adventurous places. I'm very happy to read that, by the way. Could you care to share how do you achieve happy and adventurous places? I know that we architects are guilty of this. We tend to draw beautiful drawings with happy people in them, but we ought to validate them.
Well, some years ago, we made a book about our work, and we actually photographed them as they were at that moment, and not at the moment of completion, with people in them, and we talked to them again. And I think that if you design for well-being, you often also are designing in a more sustainable way. So I think these are two sides of the same coin. And we don't want to limit people. We want to give people possibilities and feel more comfortable. So, so this is an important aspect of our design. And so not by restricting people, but offering possibilities. And yeah, having to deal with more complexity. I think a simple example is always openable windows. I can design ever more resourceful technical installations and solve everything in a technical way. But I can also give somebody the power to open their window and be in control again and getting fresh air in. So it's about simple things sometimes that give comfort to people. And adventurous means that, our future is going to be different than our past. So although we love history, we love historical places, we also have to start to love the new futures that we will be having to deal with. And it sometimes takes some radical solutions. So what is it like to live in a skin of solar panels, for example? But it might actually be very enchanting and opening new possibilities.
Yeah.
to live on the rooftop every now and then and
Well,
meet on the third floor instead of on the ground floor.
I follow your work probably 2 decades ago when you designed the famous Dutch pavilion at the World Expo. Was that 2 decades ago?
2000, the year
Yeah.
2000.
Yeah, almost. So I always then kind of find myself smiling when I look at your work. Is there some secret recipe in your office that creates this happiness in design? Is there an office culture that helps to make these things happen?
Absolutely, actually. We do look at our designs and ask ourselves, are we happy making this? And yeah,
But
so
you
otherwise
must
we
have-
should not be doing it.
You must have met some unhappy clients, right? How do you deal with that?
With unhappy clients,
Yeah.
maybe it's sometimes, keep on talking to them and listening to them and learn from them as well. So each project you learn and you can grow. Huh? And I'm also glad that sometimes clients are happy and willing to put on an experiment actually and say, okay, I'll be the pilot of it. We built in some safety vaults so that we can adjust here and there. But this is what we can do. So we can't always predict the future for 100%. So we need to make open and like I said, transformable spaces as well. So maybe if you don't like it today, there's something inside the building that you can change and transform and adapt in the future.
Yeah.
So.
That's very positive. All right, I'm going to leave the most exciting question for DPM here.
I'm probably going to give you the most unexciting answer.
No. We all pretend.
I should give an answer where everybody says, now, time to go home now.
Don't worry, DPM, we all pretend to look very excited. DPM Heng, in March 2023, Singapore has been ranked the 25th happiest country in the world. According to the 2023 World Happiness Report, 2 spots higher than last year. This must have made you happy. GDP per capita, social support, healthy life expectancy, freedom to make life choices, generosity, perceptions of corruption and dystopia were the 7 key factors used to rank more than 150 countries based on their average life evaluations. Yet, I have met some Singaporeans who are clearly not happy. DPM, how do we help our citizens and residents better balance a need to sustain, which means hard work and toil, and yet achieve happiness in life, such as work-life balance, raising family?
Well, you asked the most difficult question.
Yes, I did.
Let me say that. So you said that Singapore was ranked 2 places higher than.
Sorry, DPM, I think your mic is not connected.
Can you hear
Someone
me better
check?
now?
Yes, can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you said that I'll be happy to hear that Singapore is ranked 2 places higher. If I'm happy for that reason, then something is wrong with me. Because really, we should not allow someone to say that you are ranked this at that level and therefore you ought to be happy. Yeah. The logical consequence of that is that, well, I want to be the happiest person in the world. And if I'm the second happiest person in the world, I'll be very unhappy. So something will be wrong, right? Can you all hear me? Yeah. So I would say that we should take these rankings with a pinch of salt and see what it is worth, because we should not be a society chasing after rankings. And every ranking, whether it's of our universities, of our research, and so on, will have its own set of criteria, and whether we agree with that. I think what is more fundamentally valuable is that what goes into the ranking, and do we agree that some of those things are areas for which we can do better, for which we can bring a better quality of life in Singapore. So I would say that some of the measures, for instance, measures like per capita GDP, on life expectancy, on whether a society is generous, whether it's support, those are useful measures. Because
yeah, as coordinating minister for economic policy, of course, I have my bias, which is that I hope that our young people don't think that we should all go green and we should go and just hug the tree and therefore we don't grow the economy. Because I think economic growth is an important means to an end. Without growth, without resources, you cannot do the things that you want to do. If you say, well, I'm worried about sustainability, I want to protect our coastline, and I need to do something and learn from the Dutch on what to do, you will have no resources to do any of that. So similarly, I mentioned about a world without work. Suppose that you say, well, look, I just not going to promote any industry development. Singaporeans are going to be unemployed. Right? So does that make you a happier society? No. So I would say that we should take those measures with a pinch of salt. That economic growth is important, but how do you grow the economy sustainably? I mentioned this right at the beginning. The social support is important. How do you develop a society where people care for one another, where we are all prepared to pay our taxes, we're all prepared to chip in, we have a degree of voluntarism and philanthropy, that people say, well, look, if I'm able to, I can spare the time, can spare the resources, let me chip in and do that. So I'm very happy that many of the companies, for instance, are taking CSR activities seriously. So whether it's about protecting the environment or whether it is doing volunteer work to support others. So I would say that in that regard, it is the external set of indicators about whether our quality of life in Singapore, whether our infrastructure in Singapore is good, whether the healthcare system is up to standard, that if we fall sick, we have something that we can fall back on, and whether our friends and neighbors are around us when we need help. Those are the things that measure really the quality of life in Singapore. So those external dimensions are things, wherever we can, we should work on it. And personally, I'm a huge beneficiary of, for example, our healthcare system. I think many of you know that I collapsed from a stroke 7 years ago, and I would have died if not for the high quality of healthcare in Singapore. So I am very, very grateful that we have such a quality of healthcare system in Singapore. So that's one dimension of that we do want the external conditions to be as good as possible for us to enable every Singaporean to live their best, right? And enable every child in Singapore to be able to realize his or her potential, to be able to develop every student in a way that allows them to do what they feel most strongly about. Now, so on the question of happiness, I should share, since there are so many students here. When I was education minister, I once went to a school. This was a primary school. So I had a very nice chat with them about school life and all that. So I said, wow, I'm so happy to see happy kids in school. Because the typical narrative about kids in school is that school is so stressful, so many exams and all that. So I said, what do you enjoy most about school? He said, school is so fun because we have friends, we play, we have CCA activities, we learn together, and I have such great pals. So I said, you kids must be very happy kids. Then he said, no. I said, how can that be? Explain to me. He said, no, it's the adults around us. I said, explain. He said, well, adults around us, whether it's parents, uncle, aunties, or your neighbors, will always do their best to encourage you, right? So he said, for example, one of them said, I have an aunt, and then every time we see her, she said, oh, girl, how well are you doing in school? I said, I did okay. I got 80 marks, in the last test. Then the aunt said, yeah, but my daughter got 85. So she said, next time I must do better. Next time we met the aunt, and the aunt said, yeah, so how did you this time? He said, I got 90. And the aunt said, yeah, my daughter got 95. So I think rather unfortunately, when you live in a very confined space like Singapore, there is a tendency for us to live our life by comparison. Am I happier than the other person? Did I get higher marks than the other person? So I think if our happiness depends on some external judgment by other people, we will forever be unhappy. Because for any person who is, for however smart you are, there will always be someone who is smarter, who has a higher IQ. However successful you are, you always have someone who is more successful. However rich you are, there will be someone who is richer. And the richest person will not be the richest person forever. Someone who displays that richest person. So if your happiness depends on all these external indicators and external measure, I don't think we can be happy. So I think what is important is for us to be a society where everyone can do what you truly believe in, that you find meaning and purpose in what you do, and you are able to spend your time doing that and finding fulfillment from that. That we are able to find meaning and purpose and joy in our relationship with other people, whether at work, at home, in school, right, in our society, that yes, I feel very uplifted being with these people, being with this whether it's at home, in school, at work, in our society at large. Yeah. So SUTD should be a happy school by design, by making everyone to do that.
Yes.
Right? That you can be your best self in SUTD, that you don't have to conform to what your professor wants you to do. And if your professor doesn't like your design, you can drop out of SUTD and do a startup.
Thank you, DPM. It is indeed exciting, and thank you for the words of encouragement. I shouldn't add any more to what you say. I think we should leave those words and kind of ring in our head and mouth through them and absorb them. So with that, I would like to bring a close to this panel discussion, and would you please join me to thank our panelists, DPM, Natalie, Roseanne, and Tao Chor. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That was a fascinating and wide-ranging discussion. So for our next segment, may I invite Ms. Roxanne Ong and Prof. Natalie back to your seats first, and then DPM Heng, Prof. Chung, and Prof. Tai stay on stage and your seats while we go to the final segment for today, which will be the award presentation to the winners of the inaugural Archi Future Design Challenge. So the students actually design the future. So this challenge is a design competition organized by SUTD Architecture and Sustainable Design Pillar. This year's challenge focuses on a new narrative for the future city of Singapore. And with multiple global challenges facing us, we must go beyond building a programmatically prescribed city for live, work, and play. So we live because we can bond with each other and be part of something larger. We work because we care passionately for our people and the environment. We play because it restores our body and minds and helps us to learn more about ourselves and the world. We believe that these are the new fundamentals the future city should embrace. With this ideology, participants are tasked to design a building with a built area of 2,000 to 4,000 square meters at any chosen site in Singapore in response to this year's theme. The challenge was very popular. Participants from the secondary school and junior college categories comprised of 20 teams and another 33 teams from the polytechnic category. So today we will be presenting the awards to the winners. May I invite DPM Heng, Prof. Chung, and Prof. Tai to step forward. So for the secondary and JC category, the winning team for the Jury Mention Award is 6x7. The team members consist of Amir Gidani Fahan, Muhammad Rauf bin Muhammad Yunus, Akif Dawasi bin Muhammad Salihin from the Madrasa Al Arabia Al Islamia. Congratulations. Congratulations. Next, at third place, we have Powerpuff Architects. The team members consist of Selina Tian Shiming, Ong Yi Chen, Kara Chen Ai Ying from River Valley High School. Yeah, girls power. Congratulations to the young ladies from River Valley High School. Tied at third place, also, we have Red Knight. The members consist of Li Yinghui, Esther Faith, Wu Zhongling, Leah Grant from Anglo-Chinese School Independent. Hey, another girls team. Thank you. Now, at second place, we have Bob the Builders. The team members consist of Luke Chan Ung Chit, Balakrishnan Ashraf, Venkatesh Parnev from St. Joseph Institution. Congratulations, guys. Congrats. Finally, at first place, we have the PAC FR. The team members consist of Tang Shiying from Hwa Chong Institution and Po Hui Yi from Unoa JC. Yeah. Congratulations on the inter-college collaboration. Congrats. Next, we have the winners from the Polytechnic category. At third place, we have Lee Wen Shen Kara from Singapore Polytechnic. Yeah. Congratulations. At second place, we have Shashwina Binte A. Rama from Nian Polytechnic. Congratulations. At first place, we have Ng Chun Yi from Nanyang Polytechnic. 3 cheers to female power. Congratulations, Chun-Yi. Congratulations to the winners, and thank you, DPM Heng, Prof. Chung, Prof. Tai, and please remain on stage for the photo taking. We have now come to the end of the SUTD Design Innovation Forum in partnership with the Straits Times. We hope you have been inspired by the different perspectives in utilizing design innovation to create a more sustainable future. So keep your date free for July 21st for our next sustainability presentation. I'm Corina Chung. Thank you for tuning in. We will now end the live broadcast online.